language, together we are unstoppable. The group is simply known as the Dream Team, and here to give the intros is the man, the myth, the legend, Doug Ripley.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, so this goes as long as your energy will last, and so we have until 6, right? All right, so we're gonna see how much time we can take up. But no, we're gonna talk about some pretty serious subjects, but we're gonna have a lot of fun doing it, I hope. And so I hope you'll bear with us. We're pretty excited. I want to tell you a little background of what we're trying to accomplish here. So many of you know I travel a fair amount for our profession, and with that comes a lot of window time, and a lot of time to myself, and a lot of thoughts, and a lot of talk radio. Right? That can make a person miserable. About everything that's going on in the world, all the problems that we have, can't solve them, everybody hates everybody else, everybody's got an opinion, everybody loves traffic engineers, right? And all the things, I started thinking, man, am I turning into that grumpy old man? Yes, thank you. So, as I was thinking through this, I thought, man, what can I do about it? And I thought, all these lists of problems that we were having, is there something that I can do? Well, no, or I could just be a grumpy old man, I can sit on the porch and tell Casey how to do it. Right? That's where you ought to be doing it. Or I can harness my unchecked optimism that you think I have, and then try to come up with a solution. Now, one person in this massive industry is not going to be able to make a difference by themselves. So I thought, how in the heck can I gather people who will give me honest feedback, who will give me their opinions, what they think. They can tell me where mine are wrong, and where mine are right, and where theirs are right, and where theirs are wrong. We can bounce some ideas off each other. And I thought, man, it's a group of people that I've been involved with for a long time, where I know and love the crowd, and I trust that they're going to give me great feedback. Man, that's a great idea. Check in with my MOVITE people. Well, if I ask the whole crowd, we'd get nowhere. So I thought, well, what are some people that I know have been in the industry for a long time? I trust them. Love them, actually. Well, it's got to be diverse. Okay, I'm a planner. Check. It's one box, right? We need a city employee or some city experiences. Definitely a traffic engineer, maybe somebody from the industry. Check that box too. Public official. Boy, wouldn't that be nice if we could do something like that? Man, who could I count on? And I really didn't say that because I knew instantly who I could count on. So I called a couple of friends. I said, here's my idea. I'm going to ask you to spend a bunch of time. Probably going to be a little travel involved. You have to listen to me whine and complain for hours on end. And you're going to volunteer. And so I thought, I'm going to call my dream team and ask them to help. And funny enough, not one of them even hesitated. They said yes. So let me introduce you to my dream team. Janelle Clayton, Todd Fitzer, and Lonnie Berglund. We're going to solve some problems. Come on up. Oh, thank you. All right, welcome team. Appreciate you joining me up here. And I think it's really interesting to note that we spent about a year getting together occasionally, talking a lot through email, Zoom, sometimes in person, as you can see from the pictures. We've had a lot of fun. We've talked about hundreds of ideas in the dozens of hours that we've been together. And we kept boiling it down to what can we do? What can we focus on that might actually make a difference? So we didn't start out thinking, I got an idea, let's get together, let's do a presentation of MOVITE. That was not it at all. That was not the intent. But we did get to a point where we thought, we've got to share this with others. We need some other thoughts, some other impact, and that hopefully encourage you to do something a little bit differently also. So we're not going to try to save all the world's problems. I don't think we're going to do that this afternoon between now and 6 o'clock. But we're going to hopefully present you some things that we think are really important for our industry, problems that we're having, challenges that we need to overcome. And it boils down to three top things that we want to talk about today. Recruiting talent. And I believe we heard this morning there's a real deficit in engineering talent these days. And it doesn't seem, based on the slides we saw from Mr. O'Keefe, that it's going to get any better anytime soon. So that was, we didn't even plan that, it just worked out well. Being passionate about safety. We're going to dive into that one a little bit and see what things that we can be doing differently and do better. And then, certainly not least, but advocating for what we do. None of us are the grumpy old man in the car driving down the highway by themselves. We really have an opportunity to affect lives, mobility, economy, really, really cool things. So, are you ready to kick this off?
No. This is unscripted. This is the fun part. I promise that I've introduced you a couple times. How many years of experience are standing on here?
I believe we figured out about 110 years of experience between the four of us.
And that's just between you two.
Ouch.
So I'm like 38 still, so. This young lady was my summer intern when she was still a student.
All right, so Todd, how did we get here?
So, everybody stand up, please. So I want to start off by saying, I thought a lot about how to present this today, and my heart is so with MOVITE. I have been coming to MOVITE since I was a student. I think my first MOVITE meeting was in 1991. I'm looking out here, there's a lot of you who don't even know lie yet. There's a line in the movie Top Gun that says, "Gentlemen, you are the best of the best." This room represents the best of the best, right here. We are changing things. We are making a difference, and we're doing those things. So, I wanted you all to stand up, and Janelle's got a few questions for you about how you got here.
Yeah, so thank you all who responded on the app, because one of the questions I put out there, and the one thing I always like to ask people is, how did you get into this profession? Because I think that kind of will help narrate, words are hard for me anymore, but it'll help figure out what we can do better to get more people into the profession. So I've got some questions, and if your answer is yes, then I want you to sit down. So how many got into this profession because they had a friend or family member who was a civil engineer in our industry in some shape or form? So if you had a family member or friend, oh wow, okay.
You're still going.
Okay. It's just slow to sit down.
Don't forget planners.
And planners, this is not just for engineers, but into our profession in general. Now see, this is surprising. I thought it would have been more. So how many of you got into this profession because a teacher or you took the test in high school and it said, you should be a civil engineer? Okay.
Few more.
All
right.
Okay, and here's my favorite one. Somebody said, hey, you're good at math and science and/or science. You should do engineering. How many of you got because you were good at math and science? Okay. And how many were specifically recruited, maybe got some NIL money to, choose someone?
Forsberg, I'm glad you're still sitting. I was hoping you would be. So Mike, why don't you take a second and tell us what got you into transportation, please?
This is not scripted either, so Todd's is good at putting me in the spot. Actually, it was other professionals in the engineering field. I had an opportunity to go and learn from when I was in high school. It was more like a career exploration type of program. I could see how passionate other engineers were about the profession. Traffic engineers were really not part of that makeup, more structural. Didn't find traffic until college, but other professionals sharing their experiences, getting me excited about this profession. That's how I got into it.
Thank you, Mike. That was unscripted, so thank you. Quick round of applause for Mike. You guys go ahead and have a seat. Thank you so much for participating in that.
So Janelle, I know this was a topic that you're especially interested in, and what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I'm honestly surprised because I thought that first question that that they knew somebody, or, you know, family member or friend would have gotten more than half the room. So that was actually shocking to me. Because when I ask people, it seems like they almost always knew somebody. So that's not surprising to me. But what I do know is we just need to be out there advocating for our profession, and to anybody and anyone who will listen. We need people, and we need good people. And I came across this article in an ASCE magazine in 2022, and the president at the time wrote an editorial, and he said the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics projects a need of 25,000 new civil engineers every year, each year, for the next decade. And that's just to replace the ones who are leaving our workforce through retirement. 25,000 a year, that's a lot. And it didn't account for the additional jobs that are anticipated with the increased funding with the Infrastructure Act. And he said that was estimated to create another 883,000 jobs by the year 2030. And so, I mean, is anybody not busy at work right now? I mean, everybody I talk to is just bored at work. So it's really important that we can be out there recruiting. And like the dean said this morning, when they're declining population, we can't control that. But some things to think about is how can we make an impact? How can we get out there and recruit? And if we don't do it, who's going to do it? No one else is going to be out there advocating for us. And also, we also need to dispel some myths about engineers in general. It's not just like a bunch of dorks with pocket protectors. I mean, look at these guys, right?
Wow.
Sorry, we don't have pocket protectors. I'm saying you guys are cool.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, you were talking to Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah, this coming from the guy that's got a little circle template in his little organizer.
So, one of the things I think is a fascinating thing is I don't think people understand what we do a lot of times. You know anything about that, Lonnie?
Yeah, we talked about this as our group a little bit about just, you know, a lot of us do some complex work, and it's not really secondhand to a lot of, you know, mortal people out there like planners like Doug. And, you know, I think we need to do a better job of telling our story. I was recounting when I went to college and then got out, probably for the better part of a decade. I'd go home back to my small ranch community in western Nebraska, and my folks were like, so what is it that you actually do every day, like while you're at work? And I was out doing consulting work and flying all over the country and doing signal timing projects and working in traffic management centers and stuff, and I did not do a very good job of telling mom and dad and family like what I actually did. I don't think they understood it. They're like, well, that's neat, Lonnie. Okay, how about those Husker earbuds for dinner? Like, that was kind of the synopsis. Yeah, we need to do a better job of telling our story in probably simple terms.
And we're doing amazing things, so.
We are doing some amazing things. You are all doing amazing things. So, Janelle, it's interesting because you have a different perspective than some of us. You're a woman.
Good job. Yes.
That's a plan for you, ladies. You don't miss about it.
But you're also a business owner. And so how can we tell our story? How can we recruit? Should we just look around the room and see people that are exactly like us and recruit them?
And obviously, in the last few years, and rightfully so, diversity is a huge topic in our industry. And so we really, and it kind of hit home for me. I had kids that grew up through the Olathe school district system in Kansas City area, a very fluent Johnson County, population. And high schools, they had programs for engineering for those students if they were interested in engineering. But it's like robotics and mechanical, aeronautical stuff. It's like civil engineering wasn't even a topic they had heard about. And I thought, well, if our kids in an affluent school district aren't hearing about civil engineering, how are we going to recruit more diversity with people who might have to ride transit for their jobs more often than someone who lives out in the suburbs? And we need different perspectives. We need people who grew up with transit or different experiences. And so I kind of started to think, I'd be working on projects that were in some not so nicer parts of the Kansas City area, and we would do a presentation, a public meeting, open house at a school. And I thought, what a great opportunity. Like, we could come in here, we could come, ask the principal if we could come talk to their class and kind of explain, hey, we're doing a project in your backyard, we're civil engineers and planners, and this is what we're doing. Just kind of exposing them to it. Because half the time people haven't even heard about civil engineering, at this point in time. And so that part of diversity and I just wanted to try to find different ways to kind of just a simple message. And then also talking to kids. I had an example, there was a guy in my workout class who was a teacher in the middle school, and I said, oh, can I come talk to your kids, your students about civil engineering? Oh, he said, yeah, we can do a project, they're opening a grocery store in Mesa, it's the first one in the town, it's perfect. I can come talk about a traffic study, we can give them a project, they can do a little traffic study. And I was telling Doug about it, he's like, yeah, that's boring, they're not gonna think that's, it's not sexy enough for them, right? So then he was trying to suggest ways of how to incorporate the cooler parts of our, or sexy parts of our transportation industry, like the driverless cars or, any kind of AI stuff that they might be more interested in. And also trying to think about bringing those topics into there. Does anybody drive their kids around in a carpool? Anyone have to take their kids to school, maybe pick up neighbor kids, sports? Raise your hand. I want to be out. So when you're doing that,
I know there's so much traffic, everybody's driving on their own.
okay, so when you're and your kids in the car with kids or your kids' friends and you're stopped at a traffic signal, talk to them about the traffic signal. Hey, you know that this little unit up there is a radar detector and that's how these things know when we give you the green time, or talk to them about stuff like that. Or, hey, this is one I always like to do. Those white dash lane lines on the road, how long do you think those are? And they always say, oh, 2 feet, 3 feet. You tell them they're 10 feet, no one believes you. So that's my other one I like.
So you can get out of the car in the middle of the road and you measure it.
I just say you never know who might be listening and think, civil engineering, never knew about it, or little things like that.
So Todd, they're starting to get a little restless. What do you say we get them back up?
Yeah.
Or do you just want them to raise hands?
They'll just raise hands.
Raise hands, all right.
So,
Drop participation time.
by a show of hands, how many of you in the audience have, in the last year, participated in either a career day type of talk or gone to talk to a group of high school seniors or anything like that? Just quick show of hands. All right, that's really pretty good. I'm saying what, 30-40% looks like. Great. In the last month, have you, and this is not something organized, maybe just told a younger child or somebody about what we do, signal phasing, smart detection, anything like that? Show of hands again. Okay, so probably on that. Carrie?
For those of you that didn't hear Carrie, she said, oh shit, what?
Carrie? I'm not busting you. I'm wondering if you would share with us maybe a way that you've advocated in the last month or so with a group. Because you did raise your hand, so you're either lying or you have a story for us. I'm not sure which. Husbands count. Was he listening? Anyway, back to the story. Husbands count.
We were on a walk and we went through the whole walk through an RFB, and he had questions on how they were connected and how they talk to each other, and I was like, well, this one's solar, and between the two of us, we dissected the whole thing.
So Carrie. Carrie. I understand why I said that. Carrie, you have earned yourself a free piece of candy. You'll find out the table outside. Thank you for
Good save, Todd. Good save.
thinking on your feet. That's part of advocacy, right?
So those of you that raised your hand for having done something in the last month, could you raise those again? Let's give them a round of applause. So it's about 5:45, Lonnie, so let's talk about something a little different. Let's jump into safety.
Yeah, as we talked as a group and we're honing in on these topics, one of them that I'm super duper passionate about is transportation safety, and a whole bunch of you out there I know are as well. You're doing great work. There's a ton of funding for safety right now, and it's something that I think we're a small community, but we can really help move the needle in this. And so a couple of you have probably seen this before, but talk about storytelling in kind of layman terms. I like to show this once in a while. So who knows what that is a picture of?
An airplane.
All right, man.
Spoil it.
There's like 2 people not raising their hands. Okay, we'll talk later. So this is a 737 MAX, typical airplane. It's been on Southwest, United, American, right? These things hold a couple of hundred people. And so the point I like to make out is we're not doing a very good job in America at all on keeping folks safe. In fact, we're north of 40,000 fatalities annually, but we've kind of become numb to that. It doesn't seem to really just be that big of a deal in everyday conversation. What I like to remind folks is that number of annual fatalities is equivalent to 4 of these big planes crashing and burning every week and killing everybody on board. So 4 of these 737s, if you imagine, watch the news in a week, 4 of them every week, crash, kill everybody on board. I mean, could you imagine what would happen in the airline industry? It would shut down. No one would fly. It would be crippled. It would be anarchy. People would be demanding change, right? But yet, that's what we do every week and every day on our transportation system. It's 100 lives a day, 4 of those planes a week, and it makes me sick. And I know it does all of you, but we got to do a better job of keeping this topic in front of folks, and that's the quick nugget on that.
So, thanks Lonnie for bringing the crowd down.
Anytime.
Let's see if we can get a little bit lower, Todd. Why are you passionate about stuff?
So I'm going to bookend this slide a little bit. 52 years before this, no, I take that back. 50 years before this picture was taken. I was involved in a car crash. I was 5. My mom was hit head on, and I had a fractured skull and a broken arm. And there's a picture that I couldn't find for this presentation I was going to put up here. About 48 years later, this picture was taken. And that's me laying on the ground there with the fireman around when I was hit on my motorcycle and critically injured. I was in the hospital for several days. And this is a side note, but I'm laying there not knowing how bad I was hurt, knowing I was hurt bad, looking up at that. It said 135th Avenue, the other signed it. And I said, you know, I signed the work order to have that signed. That's the last time I'm going to see this hurt. But it has created a passion for safety. And you know, the lady that hit me was looking at the signal down the road and ran the signal that I was going through on my motorcycle. And some of you maybe were in the session earlier today on vulnerable users when I asked the question, why are motorcyclists not considered vulnerable users? I haven't accepted the fact that Federal Highway just decided because we can move at the speed of traffic, we're excluded. So that's a pursuit I have going on. But it has created a passion, and that's part of where it came from. And I know most of you out there have a story that created a passion for you because you are the very top performers, as I said earlier. So I think we got another slide.
Janelle's gonna ask the questions first.
I was just gonna say, Claudia, you know, when that happened, we were all really worried about you, so it still makes me sad to think about that crash.
Most of us were worried.
Yeah.
I understand.
We're really glad that you survived that. So I think probably a lot of us have probably been impacted by crashes. So I want you guys to raise your hand if you have been personally involved in a crash, no matter severity. It could have been a fender bender or even injury. So raise your hand if you personally have been in a crash. And I want you to look around the room and see how many hands are raised. So now I want you to raise your hand if you had a loved one or someone, you know, a loved one that had been involved in a crash. Is there anyone who didn't raise their hand for either, I guess, maybe, is the question I wanted. Anybody? Just a couple? You know, okay.
Yeah, the charm.
And did you have some? Lonnie, you started off with a little bit of passion. Why are you so passionate about this?
Yeah, so just, you know, as we wrap this topic up, this is just one more slide, and this is where it hits home a little bit for me. So that is a Jeep Grand Cherokee that's laying on its side. This is just actually a couple months ago. I was over, I've got 2 college-age sons that live in a rental house in Northeast Lincoln. By the way, side note, if you decide to have an investment as a rental house, don't rent it to your children because, you know, they don't pay rent.
I was second. I have stories.
So anyway, I was meeting a friend of mine over at the house. We're going to do a little work, and my son Porter was on his way home to meet me. He hadn't quite showed up yet, and my phone rang, and he said, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to be a few minutes late. I'm like 2 blocks from the house, but I was just in a car wreck." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just a couple blocks away. I'm on 51st Street." So I kind of bolted out of the house, and I turned the corner, and this is what I saw. My son's Jeep on its side just got hit by a garbage truck at a residential intersection. Fairly low speed, but it flipped him on the side. He was hit, fortunately, in the passenger side. I was the first one on the scene. I went over there, and he's a tough kid. He's a football player. And I pulled him out of the sunroof, and he kind of got out and dusted himself off, and we looked, and then, you know, here comes the sirens, and everybody in the front yard, and Lincoln's finally showing up. So we were really lucky, but I was like, dang, that's a rough deal. The other picture that you see there was my other son in his car, a block from our resident, so he was a young 14-year-old driver. He got hit a block from our house in the passenger side. My wife heard it, ran out screaming, you know. Anyway, he ended up being fined too, but a driver in a neighborhood hit him going about 45. And he learned that day to not put your book bag in the passenger side of your vehicle because he had a bruised shoulder for about a month. So anyway, yeah, I know to a lot of us, safety is personal, transportation safety is important. So our nugget on that is just for everybody to keep doing great work, and hopefully we'll avoid more of this.
Yeah, I could just add that the folks in this room, you're the ones that are keeping us safe. And so we appreciate you. And anything that you do that keeps us safer is a win for all of us. So we certainly appreciate that. So I'm going to bounce to our last topic because we are actually kind of running a little bit low on time, but we're going to be just fine. I have time for another margarita before we're all done.
Can we get that for you now?
Oh, well, maybe BJ can help us out here in just a minute. So one of the things we also talked about a lot is the death of expertise, right? Getting pounded on by the public, pounding on each other for the expertise. And how can we advocate and promote what we do so people understand it? It's part of the advocacy that Janelle mentioned in terms of the recruiting, for sure, but it's different. It's how do we let people know we're the ones saving their lives? We're the ones trying to get them to work on time. We're the ones that are trying to move freight down the road. How do we advocate for that? How do we also prevent that death of expertise where there's so much work and everybody's so scattered that we're not doing a good job? We're not doing all the things that we could be doing. How can we focus on those things? And I'd like to figure out what options we've got, because we've talked a lot about this, and we all have different perspectives on what this may be, of what can we do to advocate for us as an industry. Let's start with that. What are the things that we can do to advocate for our objectives?
Well, can we tell my story about the tornado there, Doug?
Go for it. I think it's a great story.
On April 25th, well, let me back up just a second. I worked for Director Bob Stubbe in Omaha for 17 years, and we were at some brutal public meetings, and people saying, this is the worst town I've ever lived in for sidewalks and bike trails and this. And Bob would very calmly say, well, that's interesting, and he would start rattling off projects. And it's hard for people to say we're not doing any good when we just start rattling off what we've done. Because our projects speak for themselves. They're good, they're saving lives. So we had a tornado hit Omaha on April 25th at about 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. By 6 o'clock that Friday afternoon, I had been out traveling with police, fire, ran into an FBI agent who sent me to a command center, and I walked into that command center, and I'd been out pulling trees off the ditches and doing everything for the last 2 hours, and I walked in, and this police officer walked up to me and said in a very stern voice, sir, this is a command center, how may I help you? And I said, I'm the Douglas County engineer, I've got 50 guys out in snow plows, clearing streets, I pulled my cell phone out, I've got contacts for every utility in Omaha, we have heavy equipment, our office is 3 miles from here, how can I help you? And he said, come with me. And he took me up into the command center where I spent the next 3 hours and then the next 2 or 3 days cleaning up our county. So 2 weeks later, the county commissioners had a meeting, and I noticed on the agenda they called in several Douglas County agencies to tell their story about what they were doing after the tornado. The Douglas County Emergency Management System, the Sheriff's Office, the Environmental Office, and who was missing? The engineers were missing. So I put on my blazer and headed down to City Hall and called myself up to the podium, and I told the story I just told you. And this was on TV for everybody to see, and one of the commissioners said, I had no idea that engineers and our maintenance staff was so involved in something like this. We really truly are, in a municipal standpoint, I can't speak for your consultants, although I can a little bit, but we are first responders in a lot of ways. We really, really are when you look at cleanup. And now you consultants too, we had a huge flood in Omaha in 2011, and every consultant in town helped us keep our city running. I don't know what we've done without all these. So we are super important, and telling that story to the public officials, to people that will listen to the news, to whoever, is so, so important. So please do it. You don't have to brag, just tell your story.
Well, I don't think bragging is necessarily a bad thing when you have such a great story. That is a great example of where we haven't done it well in the past, but the results are fantastic when you do. So Janelle, what are your thoughts on how we can continue to educate the public, inform them about what it is that we do?
I think think it's just little things like conversations you might have with other sports parents while you're watching the baseball game or whatever. And, you know, we built roundabouts by our local high school, and people will complain about them, and then I chime in and tell them why they're good and why they should double think, you know. Yeah, I know you may not enjoy driving through them, but here's why we do what we do. Kind of just the advocating, which kind of leads to maybe more recruiting if you're talking to kids again, and, you know, just kind of that constant communication, or, I mean, next door app, right, or Facebook post with the kid. I mean, it's always about, and there's a lot of traffic in those, right? People are so mad about traffic stuff, so that's a good opportunity to chime in if you're so bold to get on there and say why we're doing things or what we do is important, why. And you're always gonna have critics and haters like this post up here. What if I told you that the U.S. is littered with proof that the transportation engineering profession has no clue what they're doing? And I don't know about you guys, but I see it's on Twitter or X or whatever. I mean, I feel like no offense, but the planners are just beating us up lately. They're thinking the engineers are just...
Offense taken.
Yeah. But we gotta get on there and say, you know, we're really trying here, and we're doing, you always can do better, but this is why we're doing what we're doing, and we're trying to make a difference.
So when we're advocating for what we do, we're trying to do better. We're trying to be better transportation professionals. Todd, you're a public official technically, and we still love you. So we don't hold that against you. We still love you. But sometimes public officials can be hard on us.
We take a beating at times being a public official. I'll tell a story about Lonnie. There was a look of fear in his eyes. It's not the Tarzan loincloth story. It's just between us. When Lonnie was the city engineer for the city of Lincoln, there was an issue with safety on roadway, and somebody, I think it was one of your council folks, got the idea that this needed to be a school speed zone. And Lonnie, I kind of got brought into this third party, but Lonnie said, no, it's not going to be a speed zone. There's a reason for that. It's not going to be safe. And he got just demolished over that. There was headlines, there was stories in the paper. I remember calling him and saying, would it help you if I came down, another city engineer from a large metropolitan area, and spoke on your behalf? And Lonnie did an absolutely amazing job. And there's an example, another thing that comes to my mind, and I've had this happen a number of times, and I know Lonnie did when he was at the city of Lincoln. Somebody sending an email, a voice text, whatever it is, and saying, whoever did this should be fired. And so I always tried to get the contact information for that person and give them a call. And it's amazing how they go from being aggressive and mad when you take them and saying, no, my name's Todd. I'm the one that you are recommending or suggesting be fired. So I thought I'd give you a call and see what's really bothering you. If you could give me an example or two and explain to you why I made this decision. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Very few things in life have a 100% rate so far in my career of about 35 years. 100% of the time when I made one of those phone calls, that person by the end had changed their mind, actually thanked me for calling them, said I didn't realize the predicament you were in. I didn't understand some of the challenges you faced, and turned out to be an advocate for me instead of a critic. And so I want to share those stories.
Yeah, those are great examples, and I know we have to face that an awful lot. And Janelle, get your perspective, because you get how many children have to die before you do something? How can we tell our story? How can we explain to them so they'll listen?
I don't know. I think the hardest part of my job is public meetings, or you have to go talk to planning commissions or councils, and people are really opposed to this multifamily development that's going in their backyard. Anyone been in a situation like that? Raise your hand. Yeah. Really? Gosh, really? Okay. So I'll tell you, it's not fun, because you go up there and you give your facts, and people call you an idiot even with the facts, or you don't know. I mean, they get really emotional, and it's hard to stay kind of calm in those situations. But I think the best thing we can do is just be confident, state the facts, but also tell the story in the way that they can understand it in their language, and not necessarily using all of our technical terms, but kind of dumbing it down, so to say, just to kind of help tell them the story and hopefully make them understand where you're coming from. I think that's kind of one good way, to make that happen.
And I think a great example of that is when you're explaining why you're doing something that's for their safety. That's our primary focus. It's not just their safety, it's their family safety, it's their neighbor's safety, it's everybody's safety. And so being able to advocate and promote for what we do is really important. So I'll put you back on the spot, Sean, because you do a lot of other meetings through your job, as you mentioned. And how can we best tell that story?
Well, again, I think you have to be confident. And I don't know, I hate public speaking. I'm getting a little more comfortable with it as I've gone on, but it's
Oh,
scary.
more margarita.
Right, yeah, more margarita. But you gotta make yourself present as a confident person, and you just tell the facts. You just stick with the facts and your confidence. I think that's the best two key points I can say for handling the situation.
No, I think that's great. I think it's also using good examples of things that we've done is also really valuable. Todd, you want to talk about some of the cool things that you are proud of?
Yeah, we chose this. Doug asked me when we met several times, what's the most rewarding thing in your career that you talk to? For me, it's been making a difference at schools. It's been really huge, going and meeting with a principal or a PTA member or something like that. So what you see on the screen in front of you there is a school out 156th and Pacific in Omaha called Cuba Middle School. When I started at the city, it was just one problem after another. Traffic was backing out onto the arterial street. The first time I went there, I met with the principal, and she said to me in her office, well, I think I've solved the problem of the buses. The buses were coming from the north side of the school, which is toward the top of your screen. The middle picture is how it used to be. And she said, I told all of my bus drivers, which was 8 buses, when the first bus goes, the rest of you just go. Well, there's no control on the arterial street. No stop sign, no signal, no nothing. I'm like, you told them what? She said, I just told them all to go, and that way they're all out. And I said, well, when are they leaving? She said, oh, any minute, let's go watch. So we walked out. I came out just in time to see a car lock up its brakes, spin around backwards, and go in the ditch, and miss hitting the second bus on about 2 feet. And she goes, oh, that didn't work. I said, no, actually it didn't, did it? So we stopped that little practice. About 3 months later, a mom called me that lived 3 or 4 houses down to the southwest as you're looking at the picture. And I really didn't want to go meet with her. I thought, I've looked at this and looked at it. I know better than she does. Why am I just kind of wasting time? So I went out there and in the midst of advocating, telling her how great I really was, she said, all you guys need to do is move this sign back a couple hundred feet. You would solve this problem. And as I opened my mouth to argue with her, I realized she was exactly right. So I learned a lesson that day about listening to the people that see it and live with it every single day. You can oftentimes learn something by that set of eyes that see something every day. The picture on the right of your screen is what we ended up doing. When we widened 156th Street here a year ago, we just added a long stacking queue up to a signal, and we separated the buses from the pedestrian or student drop-off area, and it has just resolved the situation. I could give you a dozen examples of this over the years that we've done that is so very, very rewarding. And now I've got other advocates. The principal of Miller North, I don't know how many people have said, oh, I talked to Dr. Begley the other day, and he said, you guys just did wonders for his campus. Would you come and look at our campus? I said, yeah, we'd love to. We'd love to do that. And so that type of self-promotion has really paid dividends.
I think that's a perfect example of the really powerful things that we do. And a lot of times you don't even think about it.
He said doo-doo.
Doo-doo. I did say doo-doo. I did say doo-doo.
That was not rehearsed, by the way.
So, speaking of doo-doo, Lonnie, why don't you see if we can drive this thing up? Let's bring this baby home for a few more minutes.
Gee, thanks, leader. I think, as we got together and talked about all these topics, again, just restating them, you all out there are doing amazing work. We feel these are 3 things that our group of MOVITE can really help move the needle on, and there's not enough of us doing it. So if you can think about this, look at how full this room is. Imagine this room times 5 or times 10, right? The scale of more problem solving, the scale of more addressing these issues we can do. So, again, that first one, recruiting. Everybody needs to get out and really do a great job recruiting to this industry. Talk to grade schoolers, middle schoolers, high schoolers. Go be present in your local universities. Get out and make a difference on the recruiting trail. I know we got a lot of consultants in this room. We're all fighting over people in the public agencies too, but we got to set that aside. The biggest thing is we got to get more people in this industry as a transportation professional. The second one there about being passionate about safety, we talked about that. That's an obvious one. We got a lot of work to do in this country with transportation safety. And then lastly, what these guys have been sharing about just advocating, Put those haters aside. You see a wrong post that's just wrong, get on there and correct it. Kill people with data. Smile and wave. Be super positive. We really got to advocate for this industry.
So what can we be doing, Janelle? I mentioned at the beginning, we just want to do a little bit more, right? What are some things we can do?
Right, so, I mean, it doesn't have to be so overwhelming, I can't volunteer for something. You can do the littlest of things. And one thing that I would love to see more women in our industry.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, really, don't be funny about it. I'm being serious. Like, I would love to see more women in our industry, and I'll tell people all the time that are dads, and I see them with their daughters or whatever. I say, don't always just tell them, yeah, you look pretty. Tell them when they're playing with their friends, hey, I saw you solving that problem. Like, that's really smart. You'd be a good engineer. Like, give them these little nuggets in their head, compliment them on problem solving. You don't have to love math to do engineering, right? I mean, you gotta get through it. You gotta get through it. But I think that I always hate it when they say, oh, you're math, you should be an engineer. But there's so many, we need people who can communicate, and we need problem solvers, and you don't have to love math to be a problem solver.
Which Dr. O'Keefe or Mr. O'Keefe mentioned this morning, they're looking for people that can solve problems.
Right.
Absolutely.
So think about that, that's the one thing you can do is just, dispel the myths around engineering and make those statements to the people around you. Staying positive, like I know I'm guilty of this. I'll come home from a public meeting and I'm beat down. I'm like, I'm exhausted, and that just beat me up a little bit. But those are my kids hearing that message, so maybe I can phrase it in a positive way, not just the negative, but also make sure we're saying the good things and that they're in earshot and they're hearing the good things. And like wearing your seatbelt is another one that's super easy. I know my daughter will drive to school, and sometimes I'm at, put on your seatbelt. Oh, we're only 2 blocks from school, and I have to say, crashes still happen. Wear your seatbelt. And then I go into saying why I'm clicking my seatbelt because, so many fatalities are caused by people just not wearing their seatbelt. So, just harp on them, make them think you're nerdy, I guess. But these are just little things you can do. It doesn't take hardly any effort, but just think about it, while you're
And one of my favorite things on this list is that being a mentor. We recognize several amazing mentors today with Kyle, and Tom, and Earl. And just looking out of the room, I think of all of you have done such an amazing job as mentors. Many of you, not all of you, some of you are still early in your career. But take that on as a challenge. That is something that you can do. And if you don't have a mentor or mentors, I have several, find them and learn from them. So I think those are all good things. So, Todd, what do we want to leave them with? Not that we're going to leave them yet, because I got a whole more spiel to go, but let's...
I want to follow up on something that Doug just said about being a mentor, because Janelle was one of my mentors. You develop lifelong friendships that are so valuable. I love the 3 people that are up on this stage with me. They are some of my best friends in the world because of these meetings, because of the work we've done together. And I don't use that word lightly, but I truly mean it. And lots of you out of the room are my friends because of MOVITE and because of the work that we're doing together. Janelle, her comment about more women, I was talking to somebody in the audience earlier today, I don't remember who it was. I've been doing this 35 years now. Gail Sturman was a design engineer at the city of Omaha, the best engineer I've ever worked with in my career, bar none, no offense, line. I know I've always told you it was you, but I mean, you're second. Anyway, one of the reasons that made her so amazing, and one of the reasons that makes women in our industry so amazing is you think differently about problem solving. And it's a true blessing because engineering is problem solving. It's about looking at all the tools we have. There have been many meetings I've been in where a woman in the room said, why don't we just do this? And kind of like the mom example I gave earlier, when I open my mouth to argue, I find myself saying, well, why don't we just do that? That's a great idea. I hadn't thought of it. So together we are all stronger. So I had in my senior design year in engineering, I'm the oldest guy up here, so to go back the furthest.
By a long shot, too.
We had a, I don't know, do you have a dirt bike out in the parking lot? I didn't think so. Just be quiet. We had a guy come in for our senior design year. He's a big Italian guy in a black suit on, real cool looking guy. He was an attorney and an engineer. And I'll never forget him saying this in a real dark, deep voice. And he says, engineers used to take a lot of grief from being nerds. Anymore, we're pretty damn cool. You know what? We are pretty damn cool. We are doing really, really cool things. See a lot of me smile. Yeah. So anyway, find that one thing and do it. You guys are rock stars. Find the one thing and do it. Let's improve our industry.
So I will wrap it up here fairly quickly, but first of all, I want to thank you for listening. I know we kind of hyped this a lot because we really wanted you to listen to us. And hopefully you heard something from my group of masters, my best friends, my dream team, that resonates with you. Our hope is not for all of us to go out and do 10 things, although you should wear your seatbelt. That'd be really stupid if you didn't. So do that one for sure. I'm kind of going to count that one. It's not to go out and do everything all at once. To Todd's point, I want you to do one thing. Do one thing, do another thing. We started out as 1, now we're 4, now we're 100. And imagine the power if Kendra does 2 things this week. It improves our industry, right? Or Peyton does 1 or 2 things tomorrow. It's going to be amazing.
Peyton's only going to do one thing.
Okay, sorry, Peyton was a bad example. Sorry. Or Jason. Jason does something that inspires somebody else to get into our industry. Right? It's not one of us. We're all together. It's a really powerful thing to do. And so, again, we thank you for listening to us. We appreciate you joining us. We do ask, do that one thing. Figure out what it is. Find your passion. If you want to join us, we're looking for help. If you don't want to join us, do it on your own. Make your own group. Do your own one thing. Now, we appreciate everything that you do for us. And to inspire you, hopefully, to remember us, we have some stickers. See? Say be unstoppable. And you get Janelle's beautiful face, and then Lonnie, Todd, and I are on there. Put it on your mug. Put it on your desk. Put it on your wall. Put it wherever you want. But think about that occasionally of just what's the one thing you can do different, what's the one thing you can do better that impacts our industry, our profession, our objectives of the safety and efficiency. Thank you again. Cheers to a great evening tonight. We're looking forward to it, and we're glad you joined us.
Go Ripley!
So what we need, Paul, is you to join us and give us some guidance